And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause.
All right, that's enough. Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
Hey, look, we're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Boy, the national media is bringing it. Taking on Neyland Stadium. We shall discuss. Apparently, Neyland Stadium isn't even in the top 10 the most difficult places to play or home venues. A little odd, and even more to that. Now, that's from EA Sports, and people are giving them an awful lot of attention. I have a theory why Neyland is, 12th or 13th, Caleb?
12th.
12th. My goodness, that seems low to me. All right, he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Coming up on the program, we'll have Stat of the Day, this day in Tennessee sports history as well. And killing college football. Is the SEC or Big Ten on their way to doing that? Caleb and I see the end game a little bit different, but we'll discuss who is primarily pulling the strings and some very questionable moves. I will just tell you, whoever had the second transfer portal is not doing a fantastic job. That'll be Four Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. We broadcast live from their studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. We'll look at the stadiums that are supposedly tougher to play at than Neyland Stadium. Also, Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Tennessee's defense is going to look more like 2023 than 2024. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be as bad as the 2023 group, because I think we would agree the 2024 group is much better. But I think you're going to see what makes Tim Banks a very good coach, and that is he's going to have to be a little bit more inventive with some of his blitz packages. He's going to have to do some different things, but I think he's perfectly suited to do that. And I think Tennessee will be just fine. And also brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Why does Josh Heupel not use the tight end as much as Tennessee did in 2022 when they were so successful offensively? I have a theory, and I'm going to propose that a little bit later, but it's obvious they have not been an integral part of the offense as they had been before. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I am good. How are you doing, Dave?
Good. All right, let's start with the 5 o'clock shadow challenge. You haven't shaved since Wednesday, is that correct?
Since last Friday, and it's now Wednesday, so 5 days.
Well, right, but the key was Wednesday because you were showing a little bit on Wednesday, and we have plenty of female viewers, but Ashley is the one who posts the most. So we wanted to ask Ashley, who says they're always against us talking about Neyland Stadium. You think Caleb is pulling off the Wednesday shadow look, or should he go all full beard or totally bare? Those are the decisions. If you had to go one or the other for the rest of your life, shave every day or just let it grow, what would you do?
Probably. At that point, I would shave every day. I don't want to let it grow that. A thick beard is a kind of uncomfortable thing to have. I'm going to be honest. So I'd shave every day.
All right. So, Ashley, give us some insight. Any other ladies out there that want to give us some insight? We've already ran it by Mrs. Calhoun. She's fine with that. So, let's go ahead.
Or any men who's interested in men. I don't discriminate in that way.
Right. Or any men that just want to, say you're good looking is fine too. I've said before, I can tell Brad Pitt is very good looking. I can tell the guy from Goonies that was in the basement is not very good looking.
Basically, you're saying you can tell a 5-star from a 1-star.
Right. I was going to say, I get, scale of 1 to 10, I can tell you a 1, I can tell you a 10. It's 2 to 8 that I get completely lost. I'll have women say, man, that guy's really good looking. I'm like, really? I didn't know that. Or, man, that guy's goofy looking. I'm like, really? Look like a normal guy to me. All right, today's tough question. This is a series that we're going to break out, and we'll go ahead and make the poll question now. And we're going to do this for the next several days as we lead into SEC Media Days live from Atlanta, Georgia. Let's compare Josh Heupel to his colleagues and those who he is going against. And we want to start with Kalen DeBoer. Now, Kalen DeBoer and Josh Heupel's resumes are somewhat similar. DeBoer was successful at Washington, a smaller school, but not as small as Central Florida. Central Florida, Josh Heupel was obviously successful there. Tennessee has made under Josh Heupel a college football playoff. But if you go tit for tat, Kalen DeBoer has not yet at Alabama. So who would you take right now? It's today's tough question. It's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And give me an argument on the message board as to who you would take. Would it be Kalen DeBoer or Josh Heupel? And try to take the emotions out of it, because I know you like Heupel. He's a likable fella. He's, kind of like that fun uncle that comes over that's a little serious, but you get a couple of pops in him and he loosens up. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, let me give you a little bit of background, then I'll ask the question again. Josh Heupel, by the way, is 37-15 overall, with head coaching stops at just UCF and Tennessee. Kalen DeBoer, Alabama's head coach, is at 9-4 at the University of Alabama. Now at Sioux Falls, he was 67-3. Fresno State, he was 12-6, and his best work to this point in his career came at Washington. He got Washington to 14-1. Got them 9-0 in the Pac-12, that was still the Pac-12. Remember, they won the Big Ten, but they did win that conference. They made the Sugar Bowl, and they made it into the college football playoff. So right now, just based off resume, I would have to go Kalen DeBoer, because they both made a playoff. I think it was much more difficult to do, obviously, with fewer teams. It would have been more difficult to do at UCF, but Washington had fewer teams that could get in. They got to the national championship game. That's pretty heady stuff for Washington. I want to argue against myself a little bit, or what do you call it? Straw man my own argument or whatever. I do think that on the flip side of that, so I would take DeBoer. That would be my answer. But I do think on the flip side, Josh Heupel, despite what happened with Nico, has done a fantastic job of managing the NIL space and the transfer portal space. So I tend to give him a one-up there. Why? Because you've got Alabama's athletic director begging publicly for money. And I haven't seen Alabama. As a matter of fact, I've seen them lose some key transfers, and I haven't seen them bring in just an incredible amount that changes their football team. I think they still want to win the old-fashioned way. So I'll ask you, Kalen DeBoer or Josh Heupel? You're an athletic director in the SEC. Who are you taking?
All right, let me set this up and give the best case for Josh Heupel, which is Josh Heupel and Kalen DeBoer are similar in one way, and I'm going to give them a lot of credit for this. They've adjusted a lot of times to personnel that didn't really fit their system. I mean, look, Tennessee went 9-4 with Joe Milton at quarterback. Joe Milton did not fit what Josh Heupel wanted to do. This past year, the defenses started doing that 3-3-5 shell. Tennessee didn't have a fast receiver. Josh Heupel willingly went 12 personnel, ran the ball, and had generated a historic year by Dylan Sampson, the running back. On the flip side, Kalen DeBoer, who runs a specific offensive system, West Coast air raid concepts, had a quarterback in Jalen Milroe that was the absolute, I think you and I would agree on this, right, Dave? Jalen Milroe is the absolute worst fit for a system in which you have to spread the ball around. You can't get a worse quarterback than Jalen Milroe if you're looking for a quarterback that has to spread the ball around. And
well, I don't know if you can't get a worse one, but I would argue there were 10 in the SEC that would have been better fits.
yeah, he had a horrible fit of a quarterback in Jalen Milroe. And he stuck with Milroe because the team loved Milroe so much, and he had to, in his first year, keep the team together. So he kind of did what Heupel did with Milton. On those things, I mean, that they are kind of equal, and you probably could give the nod to Heupel, because there is the argument of what Heupel did when he first took over Tennessee, a dumpster fire of a program, and went 7-6, which was a miracle job. That was a miracle worker right there. But then you have to go to this. Kalen DeBoer was having to adjust to an offense that didn't fit his system his first year at Alabama. Josh Heupel was having to do it his third and fourth years at Tennessee. So I'm picking Kalen DeBoer for this specific reason. I think Josh Heupel, the coach, is great. I think Josh Heupel, the roster builder, is borderline abysmal, honestly. I think Josh Heupel is terrible at building a roster. And it has been a consistent problem since he's been at Tennessee. Great offensive mind, great at getting kids to play, at getting a team to play well above its level. But the way he's built his rosters, particularly with the system he's run, I mean, we are talking about the guy that wanted Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker. We're talking about the guy that asked for $8 million to be shelled out for Nico Iamaleava. We're talking about the guy that has yet to have
Whoa. Let me defend him on a couple of things. You're absolutely. I can't defend him on the Joe Milton thing. The fact that the guy was just A, placed above Hendon Hooker, and B, not more ready to play. That's something we haven't really criticized Josh Heupel on. He had that much time with Joe Milton, and Joe Milton wasn't better in 2023. He wasn't much better than he was in 2022 or 2021. I don't understand how you can't get significantly better. I know accuracy is somewhat innate, but I'm going to defend him on the Nico thing. I don't think you could have foreseen his dad coming in that regard. And I will say this, as goofy as that situation got, and I think it's embarrassing for Tennessee, please hit the like and subscribe button and vote on our poll question. Who would you hire if you're an athletic director, Kalen DeBoer or Josh Heupel? I will say this, Tennessee is in a position where they've got a guy who's got talent, who's got experience, and then they've got a Merklinger guy who's a 4-star guy and a McIntyre guy who's a 5-star guy. So if this is as bad as the quarterback situation goes, then I'm going to stand up for Josh Heupel. And I wrote a column about this, and maybe I danced around the subject. I certainly didn't mean to. But basically what I was saying is it's kind of like Nico was the Titanic hitting the iceberg. Yet I felt like all of the passengers on the boat were saved out of the water. I'm not saying Joey Aguilar is going to be great, but they do find themselves with options. And had they not gotten Aguilar, it'd be let's go Merklinger. And I don't think anybody feels real good about that.
Well, Nico was a throwaway point with the $8 million, though. That's not even in the top 5 worst roster building things he did. I mean, we're talking Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker is higher. That's inexcusable. Also, it's a big indictment that entering his 5th year at Tennessee, he has yet to start an offensive lineman he signed out of high school. That's a really big problem. He keeps missing on linemen. Also, last year, forcing Brew McCoy into the number 1 wideout was a total failure. Brew McCoy was not able to go. That was a huge mistake. I'm sorry. I love Brew. I think he's a great guy. He lost a step from that injury, and he shouldn't have tried to force Brew McCoy in.
Okay, and I think we're arguing 2 different points, and tell me if I'm right or wrong here. I think I'm arguing that he's done a really good job, and I would point to Colton Hood going out and getting him, some of the other transfers they've got. Getting a Lance Hurd is a talented guy, although he wasn't ready to begin the season. You should have had another offensive tackle ready, but you didn't. But I think for the most part in roster building, he's done a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah. See, I disagree. I think he's done a horrible job.
No, I think we may be on the same page. Work with me for a second. I think what you're saying, and I would agree with, is in terms of personnel management, he's done a poor job.
That's fair. I could get with you on that. Yes, I mean, personnel management.
He's gotten the guys, but Lance Hurd's a guy that you should go out and get, and he sits for a month before he plays to learn the system. Who else am I who are some of
John
the-
Campbell Jr. was one of those. Andre Carrick. That's just on the line. But yeah, I mean, even Brew McCoy, he went out and got Brew McCoy before the injury. You are right. He's gotten the guys. I'm actually, yeah, okay. I'm with you on that. Personnel management is an issue. Now, again,
and these are just the ones we know about.
Right.
I mean,
these are just
think about that. I mean, we don't see the safeties play corner in practice because practice isn't open. I mean, that is largely my concern. I mean, I look at Sham Umarov, for instance, and he's slated to play guard, and he looks like a tackle to me. So I wonder how many we don't know about, and we'll never know about a personnel mismanagement. And John Chavis still says that Jason Witten playing tight end was personnel mismanagement because he would have been an All-American defensive end. So obviously that's a stretch. Then a little middle linebacker too.
Yeah, that was personnel mismanagement. But I guess where I'm at is that with Kalen DeBoer, put it this way: when in year 4 we're giving you credit to adjusting to personnel issues, you deserve a lot more blame than when you're having to adjust to it in year 1. Even if you do like Kalen DeBoer, which he did. I mean, I get it. Kalen DeBoer took over a roster full of 5-star talent. I mean, there's no denying that. But he does have a system, and he had a quarterback that everybody was criticizing him for going 9-3 last year. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, if you look at Kalen DeBoer's system and the fact that he was forced to start Jalen Milroe, it's kind of a miracle that he went 9-3, honestly. I mean, he beat Georgia his first year.
Well, I'm to the point after watching that moving forward, if you have any sort of respectable season in your first year, given the fact that kids can transfer as easy as they can with the transfer portal, and that you're going to have to, I mean, you have to go back. It's just like, I mean, you're going to have to go back and change a lot of these understandings as far as playing time, as far as NIL money. I'm to the point where if you have a respectable season in your first year, that's an A+. Because there's just too much that can fall apart. I mean, it used to be you'd say, oh, some guys could transfer and that could hurt you. Now guys are transferring and it does hurt you. So I don't think I've gotten your answer. Is it DeBoer or Heupel? And we'll look at the YouTube page as well. Brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. By the way, Ashley, nice enough to say, I like the shadow that Caleb is rocking today. All respect to Mrs. Calhoun. All right, so who you taking, DeBoer or Heupel? You can make that hire right now. You have your choice. Who are you hiring?
I'm taking DeBoer. I'm absolutely taking DeBoer. And I think his track record everywhere he's been proves that. I think that now, again, I think we're giving Heupel a lot of credit that he deserves for what he did his first 2 years at Tennessee, given what he inherited. But nothing else would suggest he's a better coach than DeBoer. If you didn't have 2021 and 2022 on the heels of 2020 to rely on, and you look at their resumes overall, you would say DeBoer is the better coach easily. I mean, even at UCF, Heupel inherited a team that had gone undefeated the year before. Now, yes, he maintained it, and I give him credit for going undefeated the next year, but then they went undefeated his first year at UCF. Then they lost 3 games. Then they went 6-4. So they got progressively worse each year he was at UCF. They had that breakout 2022 campaign at Tennessee, and they haven't come close to matching it yet. I mean, let's be honest. If last year's team plays the 2022 team, I think we're all going to pick the 2022 team to win.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, we still haven't seen that's been a certain slide, and he's still guilty and a victim of really bad losses. Everybody keeps trying to like Vanderbilt me with Kalen DeBoer. I get that. That was his first year, but what about Arkansas? I mean, Arkansas was on Vanderbilt's level.
No, come on now. Losing to Arkansas is not nearly as painful as losing to Vanderbilt.
I think last year...
You're the number 1 team in the nation. Come on.
I think last year Arkansas and Vanderbilt were on the same level of talent.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. So, 1 loss came to Vanderbilt. The other loss obviously came to Tennessee and then Oklahoma. Now, I, I went through the resume and I told you that if I was an athletic director, I would hire Kalen DeBoer over Josh Heupel. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm going to go to some of the comments, but it is a lot closer in my mind than I think it is Caleb's. And here's why. I think that Kalen DeBoer is a solid coach. I think he's a solid offensive coach. I think he's a solid program builder. I think he's solid all the way around. I still think that Josh Heupel might be special. And if he gets the right quarterback and Tennessee can do what they did offensively in 2022, they don't even have to be as good as they were defensively last year, but be a top 25 defense in the nation. I think they're in the national championship hunt. So I'm seriously reconsidering my decision and thinking to myself, do I win a championship with Kalen DeBoer? I don't know. I don't know with Josh Heupel either, but I will tell you this. I think he'll get back to his high-scoring ways, and that does sell tickets, which if I'm an athletic director, I'm thinking about. And Danny White has mentioned he likes scoring. He doesn't just like winning. He doesn't want to win 9-6. He wants to win 90-60. And I would factor all that in. So have I talked myself into going back to Heupel? I think I kind of close to have. I mean, I don't know that. I think DeBoer deserves an awful lot of credit for what he did last year. But do you look at him and say he's special at something? Is it his offense?
I think it's his offense and what he does with quarterbacks. Now, DeBoer has a specific system, and he had to adjust that system. And I think his offense is very – I'm a big believer in the it's an air raid West Coast offense that he developed at Sioux Falls, and I really do believe in it, and I believe in his roster management. I actually think just on an X's and O's standpoint, if you just gave them the exact same team, I think I would probably lean towards Josh Heupel coaching that team. I think Josh Heupel's a little bit better with like actual X's and O's and coaching a team. I just think that Josh Heupel's, like I said, his roster management and his personnel management has been so bad before getting into the game that I've been very critical of. I think that we're talking now. Look, this year will be a big test for Kalen DeBoer. If he doesn't have his quarterback this year, then I'm throwing all this out the window. Okay, but I do believe he will. I do believe Ty Simpson will be really good, or whoever he starts will be really good, and that I think that that'll be a much better fit for what he wants to do. Look, Kalen DeBoer's offense is just not conducive to a run first, a first read and run guy. Jalen Hurts wouldn't be a fit in Kalen DeBoer's offense. He would tweak it, but it just wouldn't work. And Jalen Milroe was absolutely not a good fit in Kalen DeBoer's offense. He needs a much more of a pure pocket passer who spreads the ball around. Michael Penix Jr., what he did at Washington. And so that's, I saw some questions. Would Nick Saban have done better than Kalen DeBoer last year? Well, yeah, but Nick Saban's the greatest coach ever. And also Nick Saban doesn't really have
Nick Saban would have done better than Josh Heupel last year at Tennessee. Dan says, go ahead and change your mind. Dave will support. Okay. Making fun of me a little bit and more making fun of Dave, as that seems to be the mantra today. Mad Speeden said, wouldn't most teams do well with a perfect quarterback for what they run? That's true. And that goes to the Kalen DeBoer thing and working with Jalen Milroe. I'm with Caleb. I think he did a fantastic job of a guy that's not fit. Now, I think he's kind of poking fun at me. Hendon Hooker played perfectly, basically. I mean, if you want to go pick apart a throw or two, that's fine. So, yes, your offense is going to do really well when you have a quarterback play perfectly. However, I'll say this. If he was an A+, I believe that Nico Iamaleava would have been an A- to B+ this year. Do you agree with that?
I agree.
That is the top of level I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Peyton Manning necessarily. I'm talking about Casey Clausen. I'm talking about an upper level of quarterback play. They would have been very good. So maybe perfect was not the right choice of words there. Now, one of the things that Tennessee is going to need to lean on, I believe, this season is the tight end position. Now, the tight end position has not been grand since 2022. Let's look back at 2022, and we'll talk about Tennessee's tight end development or lack thereof. It's What the H brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. That was probably the most under the radar pleasant surprise of 2022, wasn't it? I mean, seeing Jalen Hyatt obviously win the award as the Blitnikoff as the top receiver in the nation, that was huge. Seeing Hendon Hooker win all the awards he won, seeing Tennessee just set record after record in terms of scoring, that was huge. That was all obvious. But what else did we see? We saw Princeton Fant running end rounds. We saw the tight ends being a big part of the offense. They were always out there. They rotated. One series it'd be Jacob Warren. One series it would be Princeton Fant. So what the H happened to Tennessee's tight ends and the tight end position?
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. Banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Unsung had this to say right along the lines of where I wanted to get to, and we'll dive into that. He had this to say. No, I'm sorry, wrong one. Lindsay. It was Lindsay. Said, I love the tight end room this year. If there's a year to really develop the offense, this year's tight ends would be a great place to start. It would be. And I want to get into the tight ends that Tennessee will have on the field. And I think they have a chance to be best tight ends in the conference, if not the nation. They're healthy and everything works out and everybody matures as they're supposed to. But before we get into those, Tennessee's tight ends were pretty talented last year too. And I'm talking about Ethan Davis, who been limited because he's been young, which seems to be the Heupel way. Why have Tennessee's tight ends not had a bigger impact since 2022? I have my reason. We talked about our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, but what about you? What say you? What's the reason that Tennessee's tight ends haven't been the topic of conversation more often since 2022?
Well, a couple of things, and I want to point out where this comes from. This comes from Carson Snead, who is committed to Tennessee right now, is getting recruited heavily by Florida, and I mean heavily. And he recently said he's still thinking about it. He still has to make a final decision, which was kind of concerning to a lot of people. One of the concerns is that Tennessee hasn't been using the tight ends the way tight ends want. And Dave, even in 2022, yeah, Princeton Fant on end arounds and throwing the ball was great. But in terms of actually getting utilized in the passing game, not so much. They were actually utilized in the passing game more last year than they were in 2022. So the question becomes...
But that felt like it was out of necessity because they didn't trust the receivers.
Yes, I agree. So the question then becomes, though, why does Josh Heupel not utilize his tight ends enough? He did back in the day. He did at Missouri, by the way, when he was offensive coordinator. He had an all-SEC tight end, all-American tight end that year. So is it a personnel thing or is it a Josh Heupel system thing that means the tight ends won't be utilized enough? And I think there needs to be a lot more usage of the tight ends this year. I do think there will be a lot more for two reasons. One, I think they have Miles Kitselman is back and Ethan Davis should explode and finally figure it out. But with this 3-3-5 shell that a lot of defenses are running, there's going to be a lot more tight ends open in the flats.
Okay. Adam says that's a great question, Dave. Too many variables for me to identify what has been wrong. Now, Caleb Calhoun did not identify the one variable that I want to throw out there. Adam has another one. 2 mediocre quarterbacks is the problem, recruiting potential over credentials. Some truth to that. Because it's Alex Golish. Just telling you. I mean, Josh Heupel I don't think you understand what coaches have to do nowadays, even during the season. They have to go speak to these occasional big kickoff clubs, raise money. They have to recruit. You need a solvent, if not ingenious, offensive mind sitting there thinking offense all the time. And that's what Alex Golish was doing while Josh Heupel was running the program. I'm not going to argue that Josh Heupel is the ultimate offensive mind in this program. He is. But if you're going to do inventive stuff, especially around the goal line, like they did with Princeton Fant, you are going to have somebody that's thinking about that all the time. And I'll tell you something else. What the H brought to you by Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design, along the lines of what Caleb said. I don't think you want to lean too much on the tight ends. We'll take a look at what Tennessee has tight end wise. Again, what the H? Why hasn't Tennessee had more production from the tight ends? Brought to you by Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Okay, let me explain to you what you don't want. And Caleb kind of laid this out. Last year, technically, Tennessee's tight ends were more productive than 2022. Let me give you a Dallas Cowboys example. When Alvin Harper left, what did they say? You can lean more on Jason Witten. Okay, fine. They ended
Jason
up leaning.
Witten. Alvin Harperless?
Excuse me. Kelvin Martin. Excuse me. You can lean more on Kelvin Martin. So they did. And that worked okay. Jay Novacek was not the answer. Jay Novacek was still a competent player. But then Kelvin Martin leaves, and you have Michael Irvin suffer the neck injury, and you're like, oh, just lean on Jay Novacek. No, tight end's not going to be the answer. I don't know of a tight end who gives you pop as far as long gains. I don't think there is that guy. I mean, I think you get a 15, 20-yard gain out of a tight end, I think you've done fantastic. So there was a time with the Cowboys when they said we're going to lean on Jason Witten as well. Didn't work. Jason Witten may have had a career year that year. The bottom line is your tight end needs to be a complement. It needs to be the baked potato to the steak. It doesn't need to be the steak or you're getting an overdone sirloin, because an offense that relies primarily on its tight end is going to be limited as far as long distance scoring and big games.
I think Tom Brady might disagree with you, and Rob Gronkowski might disagree with you.
Well, now I'm glad you brought that point up, but nobody else did that, and nobody else did the. And let's face it, that was more about exploiting the middle of the field and the slot position than it was taking advantage of a tight end who has various skills. I mean, because you saw Danny Amendola and other guys do that from the slot position. So, I mean, that's a very fair exception. Could you come out and run two tight ends all the time? Yes, but I don't think Tennessee's going to do that. So I don't think they want to go out and say, boy, that better get a big play from the tight end or this is going to be a rough half. You don't want that.
No, that's fair. I mean, I agree with you on that. But I think sometimes when you have rare athletes at tight end, you got to utilize them. I mean, Miles Kitselman is the reliable tight end, but Ethan Davis could be a freak athlete that could be a mismatch for anybody on the field in the SEC, couldn't he?
Okay, but I think at the NFL, and you want to throw Antonio Gates out there, he was probably the freakiest athlete. Yeah, you had a account for him, but you weren't scared of him like you were the freakiest athlete at receiver I've ever seen, Randy Moss. You weren't scared of him even like the freakiest athlete I've probably ever seen at running back, Adrian Peterson. I mean, even the most freaky athletes at tight end are still limited in terms of speed and explosion because they're bigger dudes. I don't see that being the issue. I think it's Alex Golesh. Now, as far as this year, what do you expect out of this group? Because Miles Kitselman may be the best, if he's healthy, has the pectoral injury, may be the best tight end in the conference. Ethan Davis may be the most talented player that nobody knows about throughout the conference. They could be really, really good at tight end. The flip side, if Kitselman can't get back to full health, which I think he's going to be fine, and Davis doesn't mature, they could have a big, monstrous, gaping hole in their offense.
Yeah. All right. Let me address a couple of things real quick. First of all, we said Gronkowski. We also forgot that Taylor Swift's husband has led the Chiefs in receiving, or Taylor Swift's boyfriend has led the Chiefs in receiving for the last 7 years, and they've won 3 Super Bowls at tight end. So that's also.
No, I mean, is he doing that without Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, he did it with Alex Smith. So
yeah,
But so this year, I expect a little more. Look, Heupel likes to alternate tight ends on plays. But I think together in a conglomerate, is it unreasonable to ask Kitzelman and Ethan Davis to combine for over 500 yards receiving on the year?
No, to me, that's kind of bare minimum.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't done a tight end duo hasn't done that yet at Tennessee under Heupel. So that's why I threw out the 500, maybe 700. Should we shoot for 700?
Yeah, I think that's fine too. But again, I'm not looking for the production the same way you are. I'm looking for the converting on a 3rd and 6, which is a middle down and tougher to convert than you think. I'm talking about keeping linebackers honest so they can't drop into coverage. I'm talking about doing some stuff around the goal line. I mean, that number at the end of the day on offense, I mean, tight end is probably the least consequential. Like I came away from the 2022 season saying that Tennessee's tight ends played a huge part in that offense. And I didn't know that Tennessee's tight ends last year actually caught more yards and gained more yards. But you pointed that out. But still, I think you would agree that what they did in 2022 was more impactful, right?
Much more impactful. But I mean, I agree with you on that. Much more impactful. And you're right, it was Alex Golesh. But that has more to do with just in general Alex Golesh's creativity than anything else.
Okay. And for the record, just for the record, the Chiefs tight end was 16th in the nation in the NFL last year. I think the Chiefs are a very rare example of everybody's good. And other than Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey's great. I'll give you that. But I don't know that they have – I don't know. There's just some offenses or some teams, like you look at you want to go back and look at the Niners in the 90s or the 80s, you would say, well, they had great skill position players. You want to look at the Denver Broncos that won a couple of Super Bowls. They had great offensive linemen that could pull and move and were very mobile. I feel like the key to the Chiefs is that they're just good everywhere. They're maybe not great at a bunch of different places, but they're good everywhere.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Kelsey has had multiple 1,000-yard receiving seasons. He was 16th last year, but I mean, we all agree he's at the very end of his prime. I mean, he's barely in his prime. He's a shell of himself now. I mean, Travis Kelce right now was Larry Bird playing with that bad back.
Oh, he wasn't that bad. Larry Bird playing on the sidelines. All right, he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Coming up, it will be this day in Tennessee sports history. It's a good one, and it's 66 days until football time in Tennessee. You can go ahead and fill it out. Who is your favorite former Vol to wear the number 66? These are some difficult numbers we're dealing with. And Tennessee's defense, does it have to be unique and special, or can it just play straight up like it did last year? I think it's got to be unique and special. That'll be Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Give me 2 minutes. Off the Hook Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Well, I'm getting torn apart on the message board. My goodness. Caleb, it's bad. Listen, I think Travis Kelce's awesome. I think he's fantastic. I'm not ripping Travis Kelce, but I will stand on this hill. I think that teams are still concerned about Patrick Mahomes' ability to stretch the field, even without who's the guy that went to Washington? Or sorry, went to Miami. I can't remember his name.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, even without Tyreek Hill, I think they're still afraid of that. And I think that Kelce benefits from that. I don't think that people go into a game thinking, oh my goodness, we have to stop Travis Kelce, like they thought that with Randy Moss.
Man, I guess, talking about Tyreek Hill, we could say that the way people are coming at you on the message board is a real gut punch for you, isn't it?
Very good.
Go look up Tyreek Hill gut punch, everybody.
By the way, and we had somebody that went ahead and threw out a subscriber threat, and we listened to all of those. He said that if you ever referred to Travis Kelce as Taylor Swift's boyfriend again, he was going to unsubscribe. If you had to choose, before we get to this day in Tennessee sports history, if you had to choose between dating Taylor Swift or being an NFL superstar, which would it be?
NFL superstar. I'd rather be an NFL superstar. Like, I'm not like, I mean, Taylor Swift's attractive. I think she's cute, but I think she's pretty hot. But it's not like, I mean, if I'm an NFL superstar, I'm pretty sure I could have a pick of the litter of women as hot. So,
okay.
Or hotter. So,
not with that beard.
Have you seen the women some of these NFL superstars land? Have you seen the way they look?
Let's continue to play this game though for just a second. By the way, if somebody mentioned Romo, I don't know if you're mentioning that he got Jessica Simpson, but that was
best quarterback in Cowboys history.
It was dumb. That's not
better than Troy Aikman. Better than Troy Aikman.
Either one of them are better than Roger Staubach.
That's true. Roger Staubach's the best. But
when Roger
Romo was
Staubach retired, people forget he had the highest quarterback rating of all time.
Romo was better than Aikman, though.
Well, no, he's not. But anyway,
Romo didn't have Michael Irvin.
Okay, let me ask you this: would you rather date Taylor Swift and be a, let's say you play in the NFL, you're not a star, you play 5 years, you make the minimum, because that's what everybody's shooting for, is that 5 years, because not the minimum, the pension. If you get to 5 years, you get the pension. I know so many guys that got 4 and they didn't quite get there, and they're like, it kind of changes your whole life. But would you rather be a no-name 5-year guy that gets the pension or date Taylor Swift?
Still a no-name 5-year guy that gets the pension, honestly. I mean, okay. I would.
Would you rather be a guy that basically got a cup of coffee 2 or 3 years, no pension, or date Taylor Swift?
Date Taylor Swift. Then I'm dating Taylor Swift.
Okay, you know the only way I would date Taylor Swift?
What's the only way?
Is if she promised me, she swore up and down, like our first date, like, Taylor, I think this can be something. I just think that we're coming together here and this could be special, but I have to ask a favor. And she would go, what would it be? And I would say, I never have to listen to any of your crappy music ever. And if she would do that, I would be willing to date her.
Then she would make such a horrible song about you that, you would never recover from, because it'd be so savage.
It's true. You know, the Alanis Morissette was about the guy from Full House.
Really, I did not know that.
Not even the cool guy. Not who was the guy that was all hip and stuff. And then there was the really funny comedian who passed away about a year ago. But it was the other guy, and he said he was just driving down the road and he heard the song, and something about the theater reminded. You know, who is it?
I don't know. I don't know pop culture from the 90s and 80s. I was like 7.
I think his name was Danny. Somebody help me on the message board. This day in Tennessee sports history.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
Dave, check this message.
Yeah, I don't even think that the name of that show is On the Family. Yeah, David Coulier. That's right.
Dave, check out Lindsay's message.
Oh, Lindsay says, I can imagine the song Taylor would write about Hooker. Right. We can do that. David Coulier, who, by the way, I don't want to date her. Old enough to be her dad. Am I really? That's disappointing.
I mean, if you were a young dad.
How old is she?
She's 34, 35. Like, yeah, she's 35. You want to be a 15-year-old dad? I mean, you could have been, but like.
I was a late bloomer. I wasn't into girls till I was like 17 or 18. All right. So this day in Tennessee sports history, 66 days until Tennessee gets the season off and running against Syracuse.
We'll save the 66 days because I got a stat of the day for that one.
Okay. Well, can I throw out a couple of 66 jersey numbers? Jason Lehman was one, an offensive lineman who was very good. Sean Young, the only player that I've ever covered that came out before his senior year in preseason camp and said he wanted to redshirt his senior year and was completely healthy. That was incredibly odd to me.
That is kind of wild.
I said, seriously? Like, really? Yeah, but he wanted to. He thought the competition was too stiff. And interesting dude. And then David Ligon wore 66. All right, what else we got this day in Tennessee sports history? 66 days until it's football time in Tennessee.
Yeah, on this day, there's not a lot of Tennessee news that happened on this day, including birthdays, but there is something that a former Tennessee Vol graduate did that is just legendary, and he's a legendary figure, towering figure in the state of Tennessee, so I'm going to mention him. It is the 52-year anniversary of Howard Baker, Senator Howard Baker, asking
the touchdown maker. That was his nickname, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Asking the very famous question during Watergate, what did the president know and when did he know it? And for those who don't know, in 1973, that was a big deal because Howard Baker was the leading Republican in the Senate and Richard Nixon was obviously a Republican president. And Howard Baker turning on Richard Nixon on this day was pretty much what derailed Nixon. When the leader of his own party in Congress turned on him, he pretty much was done after that.
Wait, what does this have to do with the Vols or sports?
Howard Baker's a Tennessee graduate. He graduated from the University of Tennessee.
Did he play football for Tennessee?
No, but he was a big advocate for the football program and was friends with Johnny Majors. Johnny Majors actually supported Howard Baker's presidency, even though Johnny Majors was mostly a Democrat his whole life, supported Howard Baker for president.
That's a little bit of a reach. You do.
I told you there's hardly any news that happened on this day, June the 25th.
All right. Well, you worked it pretty hard there. All right. So let's change gears a bit. As Caleb brought this up at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting this morning. Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. Tennessee's defense is going to have to be a little bit gimmicky in 2025, more so than they were in 2024 when they could play straight up. Very similar to how they were in 2022 and 2023. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be as bad as those 2 years or not as good as they were last year. I just think there's a happy medium here. I think the talent level is higher than 2022 and 2023. I don't think it's as high as last year. I don't think they're going to be able to wear people out by rotating defensive linemen in continually. And I do believe that there's going to have to be some pretty astute coaching. Now, a lot of people on this message board and that listen to our show don't like Tim Banks. You know I do. I think he's a very good coach. So I think Tennessee's in good shape. And I think he has plenty of talent to field a top 3-ish type defense. but he's going to have to use some of the tricks in his bag where I felt like last year, the game plan dictated it. If they came out in 3 wide or 4 wide and it's 3rd and medium, you knew what to do. I don't think he had to do a lot of special things last year. As a matter of fact, I will say this. I think he got a little too special dropping James Pierce into coverage. But that's a topic for another day.
You ready for my hot take on this?
Lay it on me, brother.
I think the Tennessee defense is slightly less talented than it was last year, but will be better this year because Tim Banks won't rely on the talent. He will actually dial up more creative blitz packages.
See, I don't hate that, and I was about to go that far. Keep going, keep preaching, because I'm with you. I think this is a great mix of coaching and enough talent.
Right, I totally agree. I think Tim Banks loved the defensive line last year, so he lived by a philosophy of never blitz ever whatsoever, and literally they never blitzed. And I thought, when you played Georgia and when you played Ohio State, they were handling your defensive line. You should have blitzed, particularly Georgia in the 4th quarter. You should have been blitzing during that time against Carson Beck. And particularly when you saw what Ole Miss did to Carson Beck, bringing him pressure just the week before. So I had a big problem with how Tim Banks approached it from that perspective. I think this year he's not going to do it as much as he did in 2022 and 2023. Because let's talk about what he did in 2022 and 2023. He dialed up creative blitz packages and then played an extremely soft zone coverage. So he allowed teams to work the middle of the field with the philosophy of just wait for a turnover to happen. Is that fair to say? Wait for a turnover to happen, and then, the offense will do what they need to do. Whereas last year it was go win the games. I think this year it's going to be a lot of, he's going to be a little more meticulous with when he dials up his blitz packages, but he knows he's going to have to. And I don't think he's going to let Georgia go into the 4th quarter without Gunnar Stockton seeing any pressure. And I think that was a big problem last year. Now, where this could change, and I've talked about the wild card on defense for so long, where he can make a mistake is if Jordan Ross becomes as good as I think he's going to be, Tim Banks might again just rely on playing the defense he did last year.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen him do some more creative things with James Pierce. And we mentioned James Pierce had a personal issue before the season, so maybe he wasn't in the best frame of mind to accept changes and new schemes and new things and new responsibilities. So maybe that was part of it. But I thought they could have done some different things with him and moved him around a little bit more. I thought that was an opportunity missed, some shape, form, or fashion. Now, Lindsay says, I question anyone that doesn't like Tim Banks' coaching abilities. Whoa. Lindsay, I'm not arguing with you. I agree with you. But I was on that island all by myself 3 years ago, Caleb.
I mean, you were. I agree. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even where you were, and I have to admit I was wrong. You were right. Dave wrote a column right after the South Carolina game because everybody wanted Tim Banks fired after the South Carolina game. South Carolina had 10 possessions that game and scored 9 touchdowns. I mean, it was awful, and I think we all wanted. I think anybody who covered Tennessee thought that's so unacceptable. Dave comes out and says, "Be careful what you wish for." Dave was right on account of a few things. One, we realized the defense was split down the middle because of the Jeremy Banks situation. Wasn't a good defense. And then also South Carolina may or may not have cheated. And so with all that in mind, you're absolutely right. It's a totally different scenario now looking back. And I was wrong. I was totally wrong on that. I think my only issue with Tim Banks was I think last year he overestimated how good his defense actually was from a talent perspective.
Well, they still, though, were one of the top defenses in the SEC. That's the second time you've criticized him last year, and I'm all for that. Feel free, but I have trouble criticizing him. What happened?
But he thought Jermon McCoy could handle Jeremiah Smith on one-on-one against Ohio State, and he couldn't. He couldn't. I mean, that he thought that his defensive line would eventually wear down the offensive lines of Georgia and Ohio State and would bring pressure by the 4th quarter. They didn't. And so that's where I'm critical.
Yeah, but see, I look at that whole crew of Ohio State receivers, and I think you're talking about major, big-time NFL prospects. I think Jermon McCoy is an NFL prospect. You see the difference? I think Ohio State has 3 guys that could be all pro within 3 or 4 years in the NFL. I think Jermon McCoy plays 6-7 years in the NFL and is solid.
Yeah, but Jermon McCoy looked like Kamal Hadden in 2022 against South Carolina last year against Ohio State. I mean, maybe that's a little harsh to say that, but at the same time, like, he looked awful.
All right, let's do this. Let's make the poll question this, because I'm curious, because now it seems like everybody wants to have a Tim Banks parade. And again, I was all by myself telling you that he was a very good defensive coordinator. He just had an issue at South Carolina with chemistry, and he's had an issue throughout his time until last year with talent. So let's make this the poll question. Are you 100% confident in Tim Banks as Tennessee's defensive coordinator? Just yes or no. Clean. Do you still have some doubts? Because the message board is looking like totally yes, which I have to admit, I'm a little bit surprised that that's the case. A bank on it. Tennessee's going to have to be a little bit more creative on defense this year, but will still be very good. Brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, I don't want to make excuses for Jermod McCoy. I just don't think there's going to be a situation. Let's say he was 100%. I don't think there's going to be a situation this year, short of the playoffs and potentially Ohio State again, that he would face a receiver that I think is significantly more physically gifted than him. And I think that was the case against Ohio State.
Okay, but if you're Tim Banks, if you're cornerback, shouldn't you be aware if your cornerback's about to face somebody more physically gifted, and shouldn't you be more creative at that point? Why are you relying on your shell defense at that point?
See, I'm going to sound like Philip Fulmer here. I'm going to say Jimmy's and Joe's, because they don't just have one, they have three of them.
So then if they have three of them, isn't your best chance to bring back the blitz packages and give the quarterbacks hell to hope to force errant throws?
I'm not arguing with any of that. I mean, in retrospect, that's what they didn't work. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I could come up with 5 things that would have worked better than what they did, but I understand why they did what they did.
Okay. Well,
I think you want your Jermod McCoys and your other corners, and Boo in particular, who's not a corner play slot. I think you want them to win more battles than they won. They lost battles.
Yeah, but I think after you saw the Georgia game, you should have thought that, okay, at this level of talent, the Georgias, Ohio States, those guys, they're probably not good enough to win those battles. Here's what I actually think happened. I'll go back a little bit. You know what I think happened with Tim Banks, Dave? Tim Banks laid the blueprint to shut down Alabama's offense with Jalen Milroe. I mean, he called a brilliant game there. And I think after the way Tennessee shut down Alabama's offense, knowing the talent technically that was on that offense, even though Jalen Milroe wasn't a fit, I think Tim Banks got it in his head that, okay, Tennessee, I've got a defense now that is good enough to, on standard Jimmys and Joes, beat out the best teams in the nation. And I think he got hit with reality that, no, they weren't good enough to do that. And that showed with Georgia and Ohio State.
David says Ryan Williams, talking about Alabama's receiver, will finally be 18, so we need McCoy. Very true. I forgot about him. They will obviously face him. He would play right alongside those Ohio State receivers. But I'd argue this, as young as he was and as experienced and as talented as they were, last year in that Tennessee game, had he been a Buckeye, he would have been the 4th best receiver for Ohio State.
Had who been a Buckeye? Ryan. Oh, yeah. Ryan. You might be right. And the crazy part is Ohio State had a bunch of first-round receivers from the previous year.
Yeah, I think you're talking about a run of, if you want to make it analogous to Tennessee in some shape, form, or fashion, probably the defensive linemen of the late 90s and early 2000s. That's what Ohio State is going through right now with wide receivers.
They are. I mean, they are kind of the wide receiver you at the moment. I would even say like what Clemson went through in the late 2010s, when Clemson was pushing out, like, it started with Sammy Watkins and went to Amari Rodgers, T. Higgins. I mean, they were just pushing out wide receivers left and right. And
this question that's come up on the message board. Would you rather have Banks or Golish? Do we want to do that tomorrow? Do we want to save that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
That one.
I've got some strong feelings on that. We'll do that tomorrow. Great job,
We'll write this down.
We have the smartest, best fans in the absolute world. I actually had somebody mention that to me the other day watching the show. He works in media, and he's like, man, fans come up with great topics. You're fantastic, and they're interactive, and you guys are. No question about it. Dylan says the problem is Ricky Gibson isn't nearly as good as Jamad. That was the thing, too, and I was higher on Ricky Gibson when he came in. I mean, if you make a list of the most key players in Tennessee's football team, I have trouble thinking that Ricky Gibson's not in the top 5.
Well,
maybe that's another topic.
I mean, there are a lot of cornerbacks, and you know this, Dave. You've covered a lot of them. There are a lot of cornerbacks that can be very good when they're covering the number 2 receiver, right? But they just can't. They will never be able to cover the number 1 guy. I mean, I guess the best example of that is Richard Sherman looked like a Pro Bowler when he was covering the number 2 receiver and had Earl Thomas backing him up at safety, and then he went to San Francisco and was a total flameout because we found out he wasn't a great cornerback. Josh Norman was a great cover 2 cornerback playing zone for Carolina, and then went to Washington and was forced into a man, and they wanted to put him on an island. Like, just because you can play good covering the number 2 receiver in a system does not mean you can be on an island by yourself. That's a different level.
I'll give you another one. How about Larry Brown? I hate to bring up the Cowboys repeatedly, but how about him winning a Super Bowl MVP? Do you think he was as good as Deion Sanders on the other side? Do you think he was as good you may not remember this name, Kevin Smith, who was really good out of Miami? I mean, he was not even the same ilk of those 2 guys, but he covered the number 2 receiver the entire time.
No, that is true. And actually bringing it back to Tennessee, I mean, I know they did a lot more zone blitzes and didn't coach cornerbacks well, but you could put Dwayne Goodrich on an island in 99, couldn't you?
They didn't do that a lot until the national championship game, which you can read about and Celebrate 98, though.
Yes, that's true.
Tennessee's 1998 national championship game.
And then they did it the whole year in 99, which, by the way, is why Deion Grant, I think a big reason Deion Grant set the record or tied the record for interceptions that year.
Yeah, and I hope he's not watching because he's one of my buddies. But Steve Johnson started at the other cornerback position. Steve was fine, but how much did he benefit from Dwayne Goodrich on the other side, and then also having a guy like Deion Grant that could cover up a mistake, and a guy like Fred White that made receivers afraid to run over the middle?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Mean, Steve Johnson, I hate even saying this, but there are some years I don't know that he starts. But in this particular year, he started and he did a fantastic job, did a good job, but he was going against Tennessee's number 2 wide receiver. Coming up, stat of the day. No, do we have stat of the day or this day in Tennessee sports history?
We'll have stat of the day coming up.
Okay, stat of the day. Oh, so I did the number 66 wrong. Sorry about that. By the way, Jason Lehman, Sean Young, or number 66.
Jason Lehman is the one who cussed out Peyton Manning when Peyton Manning first went into the huddle at UCLA.
Yeah, that's a great story. All right, so Neyland Stadium. I don't know. It's not that difficult to play in. It's not that loud. Doesn't have a light show. Doesn't have many fans. It's just kind of a dump. I guess we'll talk about that. EA Sports says that Neyland Stadium ain't that difficult. Neyland Stadium's barely as difficult as, I think, Boise State. We'll discuss the fact that Neyland Stadium got a big time, a short end of the stick in EA Sports rankings and in terms of home field advantage. We'll discuss that. And also some people questioning the intro that Tennessee has, which I've always thought was one of the best in the nation. I've always thought it was that in one other school, to be real frank with you. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studios. I can't tell you enough great things about Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. And when I bought my Jeep, the buying process was so easy. They took care of me. They took care of the financing. They took care of everything. And altogether, it was less than a couple of hours and 2 visits. They let me drive it home so I could check it out, make sure I liked it. And I love it. Love it still to this day. And I drove off the lot very happy. No buyer's remorse because I knew I got a fantastic deal. And I know that when you go to Ted Russell Ford or Ted Russell Lincoln, you can choose the vehicle you want because they're East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. That means a ton of new vehicles that you can choose from, but they've got the used and certified pre-owned as well. So check them out, Ted Russell Ford.net, TedRussellLincoln.net. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
And here we go. This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, so I love these rating things that come out. I do think, though, that we have to take them with a grain of salt because EA Sports wants
a grain of salt.
Yeah, EA Sports wants everybody to be fans of their game. So there's reasoning behind having Neyland Stadium at number 12, which is just absolutely stupid. And we're going to dive into that. Does it at all make you not want to buy the game? I'm curious. We'll go to our message board on that. And how about this? This is something that Tennessee fans kick around a lot. I want to make today's tough question as simple as this. Do you believe the college football world is against Tennessee? Because a lot of people believe that just at the end of the day, that the college football world, be it the television networks, the NCAA, or whoever, they're going to do whatever they can do to stick it to the Vols. Now, I don't think that's the case, but we will certainly discuss. And I didn't know Ari Wasserman afraid of Vol Twitter. Did he get people upset? Something happened?
I'm not sure. Guys, fill me in on this. Did I miss something with Ari Wasserman?
Okay. Ari said Vol Twitter is the most savage fan base, and we all agreed in the chat. Even Andy agreed. Andy talking about Andy Staples. So, okay. I would say it's right there. I would agree with that. But let's ask that question. Do you believe that ultimately that the college football world is just against Tennessee? That leads us to Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Tennessee comes in at number 12. Number 12. Neyland Stadium, number 12 as far as most difficult place to play. That to me is crazy.
On the EA Sports College Football 26 video game specifically.
Correct. That to me is absolutely insane. To not be top 5 is crazy to me. To not be top 3 is a little bit surprising to me. Now, I've been to a lot of these stadiums. I can give you some insight. For those that I haven't been to, I've talked to people that have been to those. So let's dive into it and go ahead and fill in the message board. Who is a non-argument? It's a tougher place to play in Neyland. Or if you don't think there is a tougher place to play, just tell me there. But there's one or two places that I would say are tougher to play. It's hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. All right, here we go. Let's start with an SEC school. Now, this is the way they're listed according to EA Sports, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's go ahead and dive into that, and we'll start with LSU at number 1. We'll say it's hot. If you agree with it, it's cold. Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. If you disagree,
that's hot.
I can't argue with LSU. I mean, they set a record for, they made an earthquake. I've been there on a couple of different occasions. It lived up to the hype. It lived up to the hype even in the hurricane game when people had to be there on a Monday night. I'm sure that wasn't convenient. There still was not a seat to be had in the house. I can't argue LSU.
I can't. Now, I've given my caveat with LSU. It's only loud at night. It's not loud at noon. But at the same time, I mean, I can't take away what they do at night. That it's incredible what they do at night.
Yep. I mean, the thing is, though, the conference works with them, so they don't have a lot of noon/11 a.m. games.
Well, also, it's just too damn hot to have noon or 11 a.m. games down there. I mean, even in October, I mean, you remember that 13-minute on the field game, Dave? That was in October, and it was miserably hot. It felt like August.
I do. Dylan says LSU and Penn State are up there. Lindsay says Jordan Hare is crazy tough. LSU only at night. Jordan Hare is the one that gets overlooked more times than not, in my opinion. All right, so we're both agreeing that LSU is tougher to play. Then Penn State comes in at number 2. No chance. Sorry.
All right, I'm cold on it, but let me be clear. I've never been to Penn State, and I've heard. I'm not a no chance guy. I actually disagree with you because I've heard that's the loudest stadium in the Big Ten. I've heard that stadium gets ridiculously loud when they do their whiteout games and things like that at night.
Okay. Now, I would take Ohio State over Penn State. And in all fairness, I haven't been to them. But now I do think Ohio State has a little bit of that old money to it, like Tennessee had at one point before Tennessee's fan base kind of churned a little bit. And it was the sit down, I'm trying to watch the game, sit down, you're standing in front of me. I thought they had a little bit of that, but I think that fan base has been rejuvenated. I also was surprised that neither Ohio State nor Tennessee, and it's this guy I can't remember, Adam Brenneman, I think he's trying to be an internet superstar. He played tight end at Penn State, and he didn't have either of them as far as intros in their top 10. To me, Ohio State should be in the top 5 because of their intro partially and because of the size. And I think Tennessee and Ohio State have the 2 best intros in all of college football.
Okay, so we'll get to, funny enough, Ohio State's number 3.
But I'm cold on Ohio State being ahead of Tennessee.
I'm cold on Ohio State. I see. I'm flipping. The more I'm talking to myself, I'm actually hot on Beaver Stadium, Penn State being ahead of Tennessee. I'm cold on Ohio State being ahead of Tennessee.
Okay.
I think Penn State is actually, again, Penn State's the loudest stadium, I think, in the Big Ten by far.
Okay. Then we go to Georgia. No chance.
No chance. Not possible.
Even if they're loudest with Eric Ainge poking them with a stick, they're still not louder than Neyland Stadium on a regular basis. Alabama. Sorry, no chance.
Nope. I mean, Alabama's gotten louder since they enclosed that stadium on the other, since they enclosed the stadium on the other side, but it's still not louder than Tennessee's.
No. And they have some of that old money. They expect to win. They're not excited when they're up 20-10 in the third quarter. So they're going to deal with some of that. And they're not going to have the same home field advantage they had as they're building that program up in Saban's earlier years. Clemson is one that if you include, I don't know if you knew this, but Clemson was able to. They actually circle the stadium in the van while they're in their full jerseys with the lights on, the sirens and all that. They circle the stadium and then they stop and they run in an open place at the stadium and they touch this rock that has some significance. So its intro is really cool, but is Clemson as loud as an SEC venue? I'm going to say no. I'm cold on that.
Yeah, I'm cold on it too. Well, I mean, I don't say SEC venue just generically. I think it's louder than Georgia, but I don't think it's louder than Neyland Stadium. So I'm cold on that too.
I haven't been to a game at Clemson. I've been to a camp at Clemson, and I would be surprised if it was louder based off the layout. But again, I think you're talking about second tier either way when you're talking about Clemson and Georgia. Now, Florida, people are going to get mad at me.
That's hot.
I'm sorry.
Literally, because it's hot down there.
Yeah. Now, DJ Lagway and Aaron Childs both said Neyland was the loudest place they've been outside of the Swamp. The Swamp is the loudest place that I've been to. And part of that was because of the rivalry that was ongoing when I was covering that series with Tennessee. So I give LSU a little bit more credit because that wasn't a rival. But if you make me pick the loudest one in my 25 or so years of covering college football, it's Florida when it was hyped with Tennessee.
Let's be honest why Tennessee struggled in the Swamp so much specifically. And I want to know your thoughts on this, Dave. I feel like when Florida is rolling as a program and you have to go down there in September, it's almost impossible to win when you combine the loud fans and the miserably hot weather that you're not used to. I mean, I went to a game. The one time I went to the Swamp, it was at night, and I still felt I was going to die from the heat. Honestly, it is what's more miserably hot is a question: the Swamp or Death Valley. I mean,
well, I would have to say the Swamp because I went as a fan and drank 24 beers before halftime. When I went to LSU, I worked. So the one thing that's changed about the Swamp is they don't allow patrons, in particular students, to leave at halftime, go get sauced up again, and come back in. They were the only stadium that allowed people to do that for the longest time. But I would have to say Florida.
That's hot.
So I've got two right now, LSU and Florida. Oklahoma, not willing to go there.
Not a chance in hell.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been there. Oregon's next. Oregon gets a lot of talk. They generate a lot of sound for the size they are. Well, yeah, fine. Bud Webb could dunk pretty good for the size he is, but he wasn't going to beat Michael Jordan in a dunk contest.
Well, and also, like,
go ahead.
It's a state, like, it's not like in basketball, like Duke, you build that small arena, Cameron Indoor, because it's inside, fully enclosed. Yeah, it's going to get really, really, really loud. I mean, like, there's no way you can make a 60,000 seat stadium as loud as Neyland when they're both bowls, and in most instances, the noise travels straight down to the field. So
now I didn't know this, Ashley. This is pretty cool. So for those that don't know, UT Hearing and Speech is located inside of the stadium walls, so they do actually measure it appropriately. Huh. I did not know that.
Did not know that.
That's interesting. I also wonder this, going back to the LSU thing, how many other stadiums and fans have created an earthquake? I mean, are we to presume that LSU is the only one, or are they just the only one?
Well, okay.
They had one of the gauges running at the time.
It is skewed because LSU is on swampland, so the land is really marshy and soft already. Okay, you're not like, that's why they registered an earthquake, because the land is very, very, very soft. Yeah, so like it's not like you're literally not on solid ground when you're in southern Louisiana.
Yep. All right, so let's keep going because we're still not to Neyland Stadium. They're no good. All these home stadiums are tougher to play in than Neyland Stadium. It's bizarre. All right, Michigan.
No way. Michigan should not be top 40. Honestly.
Yeah, not to give that Brenneman guy more credit, but I just saw it last night in my insomnia. He talked about how awesome their intro was. The fact that they ran out and they jumped up and they touched the, they have that big banner.
Yeah.
I'm talking about. So they jump up and touch it midfield. Whoopity doo-dah. Looks like a middle school. Made that up. And the other thing he pointed out is that both teams have to come out the same tunnel, so it leads to fighting. I'm like, well, I don't know. That's good for anybody. I was,
and also the design. Have y'all seen how the stadium's designed? Like, it's so far off the field and it goes out like this. All the noise travels out. It is a quiet stadium, Michigan.
Yet another team ahead of Tennessee, as I don't understand how Tennessee could be this low in toughest places to play by EA Sports. It's Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
All right, Texas A&M.
That's hot.
I'm going to give it to Texas A&M, even though I haven't been there. I've talked to a lot of people that have, and they said they told me that it was one of the loudest venues they've been at. So if you're asking me for my final, I would say I'm going to go off my own experience for my final list.
Oh, wait, can I say my thoughts on Texas A&M first?
Yeah, let me just throw it out there and you can take over. I'm going to say Florida 1, Texas A&M 2, LSU 3, Neyland 4. And I really think could mix them up and reorder them and be fine.
All right, I agree. Texas A&M, I'm hot on. I've heard enough good things about Texas A&M for me to say that, like, even though I've never been there, to say it's louder.
That's hot.
I'm actually gonna go A&M 1 because I hear A&M is actually loud at noon, unlike LSU or Florida. And then I'll go Neyland 2 because Neyland's actually loud at noon, and 3:30, unlike LSU or Florida. I understand LSU and Florida. I'll go 3 and 4. They're kind of interchangeable. And Beaver Stadium, number 5 at Penn State. Those are the 5 loudest to me. I think those are the 5 tier 1. Those 5 stadiums are tier 1 stadiums for loudness above everything else.
Yep, I can roll with that. All right, so you would have Neyland Stadium at 4?
I would have it at 2. I think I'm hot on the fact that you could say the Swamp and Tiger Stadium are louder than Neyland, but I can't get past the fact that they are not loud at noon, those games.
Yep, that's fair. Dylan says, I'm surprised Notre Dame hasn't been named. I actually am too, because I think
that's not a loud stadium.
Well, it's not, but okay. That comes back to what I want to share with you about this list. This list is orchestrated. This list is intended to incite confrontation or at least discussion, which is what we're doing right now. But wait and see. Neyland Stadium will be in the top 5 next year. So they'll endear themselves to Tennessee fans. The reason I'm not surprised Notre Dame hasn't been named, and no, they shouldn't be. They're kind of an open stadium, a lot like Michigan, and they're smaller. So, and they have a monstrous press box with suites that take up what could be a lot of seating, which would lead to more noise. But I'm surprised Notre Dame's not on it because it's an opportunity for EA Sports to jump on their bandwagon since they were in the national championship game and endear themselves to Notre Dame fans. So I'm a little surprised it's not on. I'm not saying it should be. I'm not saying Tennessee should be 12 either. So I got a lot of problems with this list. Let's remember, this is marketing. That's what they're doing. So it's not something that I believe you would take to heart, get too hurt about, but just know that it's kind of absurd that Neyland is number 12.
Absolutely absurd. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Totally agree.
Were there any out there that you thought should have been on there?
Well, in the top 25 behind them, you got Texas Longhorn Stadium, Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, Doak Campbell Stadium at Florida State, Camp Randall Stadium at Wisconsin. Now, I've heard a lot of stuff about Camp Randall Stadium at Wisconsin that they could actually compete too. So maybe
they do that jump around song.
Yeah, they do. Williams-Brice Stadium at South Carolina. I've heard that one. Well, I've been there. It didn't get as loud to me as some of the other ones, but it does get loud. Jordan-Hare Stadium, you're right, gets loud. Husky Stadium at Washington, no. I mean, that's not no. I can just see it on TV and no.
I'm just telling you, Jordan-Hare should be in the top 10, and Williams-Brice should be right at the top 10.
Yeah. Kinnick Stadium in Iowa, maybe, I don't know. Rice-Eccles Stadium, Utah, I wouldn't know. Notre Dame Stadium, I don't think it's that loud. Carter Finley Stadium, NC State, I can't think that's that loud. T-Boone Pickens Stadium, Oklahoma State, I can't think it's that loud. Same with Spartan Stadium, Michigan State. Can't think it's that loud. But number 25, the most interesting one, Davis Wade Stadium, Mississippi State. It's loud because of the damn cowbells.
Yeah. It definitely is. You're looking around, and I think when I was there was like 48,000 people, and you're thinking to yourself, the only reason it's loud is because everybody has a cowbell.
Yes. And it's the most.
But it was cool that it was loud, and it was one of the smallest stadiums you're at. I mean, imagine going to Vanderbilt and it being loud for some reason. I guess they would be slapping together their textbooks.
And it comes from, only in Starkville could this happen. It's loud because the cowbell tradition started because a cow from a farm wandered onto the field one day in Starkville.
But I love it. I mean, that's SEC centric right there. Man,
man, if you're trying to show off an SEC town to like a northerner, you don't go to Starkville. It will reinforce every stereotype they have, every negative stereotype someone has about the South.
Probably true. Stat of the day brought to you by Newbert Collision Center. Newbert Collision Center is absolutely fantastic, and they will take care of all of your quality repair work and fantastic customer service. They're East Tennessee's best choice to get your car worked on. If you get a little ding in there, they've been in business for 50 years. JoeNewbertCollision.com, JoeNewbertCollision.com. What do you got? Stat of the day, Caleb?
66 days till football time in Tennessee, and you named all these people to wear number 66, but you didn't name the one All-American in Tennessee history who wore number 66, and there's only one. His name was Bill Johnson. Played for Tennessee as an offensive guard in 1955, 56, 57, was teammates with Johnny Majors, Buddy Cruz, was part of that legendary 56 team under Bowden Wyatt that went 10-0, won the SEC title, that Johnny Majors finished second in the Heisman. They lost their bowl game. Bowl games didn't count at that time. They were exhibitions. Tennessee, many people thought they should have claimed a national. Keith Jackson thought Tennessee should have been declared national champions in 56, funny enough. And he thought Johnny Majors should have won the Heisman that year.
Interesting. This is the same Bill Anderson that was...
No, Bill Johnson, not Bill Anderson.
Johnson. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too bad. I was hoping it was
such a very unique name, right? I mean, there's no other Bill Johnsons in the world. If I say Bill Johnson, the first thing you'll think of is Tennessee All-American.
That's right. Yeah, just like people say my last name, the first thing they think of is sports. Well, different kind of sports. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, broadcasting live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. Speaking of, 4 Downs coming up, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. We'll discuss the SEC or the Big Ten. Are they helping or killing college football? Stay tuned. More after this with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your pair.
A guy with a lot of jobs, but this one is the most important.
This is not government work. As such, I treat it with care and attention.
Until someone else calls. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right. People have already started to notice on the YouTube page. We'll do it 4 kicks. And before we get to 4 downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford, who's killing college football. Is it the SEC or is it the Big Ten, and why? Give us an update on our poll question, if you can, Caleb, before we get for kicks, which deals with the Karate Kid.
I would let Blink bite me.
Well, no. Go back to the earlier one.
Oh, that poll's already up. So, okay. Do you believe the college football world is against Tennessee? 77% say yes, 22% say no. Guys, I'm sorry to be this guy. The college football world's not against Tennessee. Did Peyton Manning deserve the Heisman in 97? Yes. Was he a victim of a PR campaign? Yes. Was there resentment against Philip Fulmer because he's not a good interview and many media members felt that Johnny Majors was unfairly pushed out? Yes. There's not a hatred. The college football networks and world, they want Tennessee to be good because they know it's good for them.
I'll say this. I think there were a lot of local media that were a little bit older than me that covered the Johnny Majors to Philip Fulmer transition that not overtly, but resented how Philip Fulmer got that job and the fact that he did have a lot of success based off what Johnny Majors had built. I don't think he's a great interview. I agree with that. I don't think that the college football world is against Tennessee. I do, however, think they're for some people. So, like when Alabama is doing well, I think Alabama is going to get the calls more oftentimes than not. And I'm not just talking about officials. I'm talking about stuff we don't know about the NCAA is dealing with. I think there's some programs that maybe have not been very successful lately that would get the benefit of the doubt. Southern California is one that I always think is usually going to get the benefit of the doubt, especially after they almost destroyed it with the amount of scholarship productions they put on with the Reggie Bush thing. I don't think they're ever going to do that again. I think Notre Dame, they would bend over backwards. So I don't think they're against Tennessee. Now, for kicks, Martin Cove, the Cobra Kai star, before we get to who is ruining or saving college football, depending on how you look at it. He's the guy. Now, is he the one that screamed, put him in the body bag or sweep the leg? What did he scream?
I never really watched Karate Kid, so I don't know.
Holy cow. I think he said sweep the leg. All right. So apparently, he's like a bad guy in this thing. And he was being playful with his co-star, Alicia Hannah Kim. And said in a statement, I deeply regret and apologize for my actions regarding the incident with Alicia. A genuinely kind and wonderful person who didn't deserve to be put in this position. What position was she in? He was put in a position of being bit. And he says there's no excuse for his behavior. He takes full responsibility for what he did. Martin was kicked out of a fan convention in Washington State over the weekend after Alicia told cops Cove bit her so hard on her arm, he nearly made her bleed.
I just
a little creepy.
Like, where does, and for the record, they're both stars on Cobra Kai, that Netflix show that I hear is great. I need to watch, but the Netflix series. But where does what situation arises where you're like, ooh, let me bite you? Like, I don't understand.
I'll take it a step further. In what position? I mean, I've got to be fighting for life and death for me to want anybody's body part to be in my mouth to where I could bite it. I don't know what's worse, being the biter or the bitee.
Being the biter. Like, you don't like that's. I would hate to be known as someone who bit somebody. Like, and a woman, like, Like you're a what are you, a 65-year-old man, and you bit a woman that what is she, like, what, 30? Even that?
Looks like she's in her 20s, but I'm not really sure. Okay, so give us an update on the poll question. I'm guessing Elizabeth Shue's running away with it.
Let's see. Who would you rather? I would let Blink bite me. Ralph Macchio, Martin Cove, Pat Morita, and Elizabeth Shue. Yeah, Elizabeth Shue is at 71%. By the way, I'm bad with these pronunciations. Ralph Macchio.
Interesting.
Now, again, I'm sorry if I get these pronunciations wrong. I wasn't familiar with the Karate Kid of the 80s, so I don't know. And I need to correct myself earlier. I said Sweet Falls earlier when Galen, and it's Sioux Falls. I know. I really screwed that one up.
Oh, that's all right. That happens. All right. So, yeah, Elizabeth Shue, Adventures in Babysitting. She would be allowed to bite me. The other three guys, no, they're not allowed to bite me. But if you want to, and I'm not interested in biting in any of them, not even Elizabeth Shue. But Caleb, if you want to, go ahead and change that up. Would you rather be the biter or the bitee? Because I think both sound absolutely awful. I don't want to bite somebody. I don't want germs in my mouth. I don't want any of that. Sounds like a
this is. I love being asked by a hooker if I'd rather do the biting or be bitten.
Yeah, but I've given you the tab yet. I mean, depending on what you pick is how expensive it is. All right, so the SEC or Big Ten. Caleb argues that they are killing college football. Caleb, why do you argue that? It is 4 downs, and it's brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. You can go to tedrussellford.net, tedrusselllincoln.net, or go to the Kingston Pike location or the Parkside Drive location. 4 downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
4 downs. Can you count? 4 downs. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and tedrusselllincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
By the way, let's just say Elizabeth Shue had something going on. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into this. You think the SEC and Big Ten are killing college football? Why, Caleb, before we get into some of the possibilities as to how?
Well, by their expansion, they have already destroyed a conference. They are destroying rivalries. They are ending the value of conference races. They've already destroyed the importance of the regular season and the magnitude of it from game to game and week to week. And they are destroying conference championship games, all for a couple of extra weeks of football in December that nobody watches because it's around Christmas. So, yeah, that's what I think. And I've been very big on this. And
now you have. Now, my argument is this: you're going to end up with a super conference, and it's going to be better in the long run. But I will give you this: in the interim, yeah, they're kind of stomping all over the traditions. They're stomping all over what made college football great. And if you're not careful, you're going to do the NASCAR thing with the car tomorrow in the playoffs. You're going to screw it all up. So they've got to get this super conference thing in line within, I think, the next 3 to 5 years, where they've done irreparable damage. Now, if they do that and they get the super conference in there, do you feel better about where college football would be before we get into some of the things that the two conferences have done to sidetrack this?
If the super conferences were formed and then the super conference was formed and then they created within the super conference divisions, i.e. like the original SEC or the original Big Ten and the original Pac-12, and they had and it was the centralized governing body like the NCAA should have done, then yes, I would be okay with it. I don't foresee that happening.
Okay, let's go for it. First down now. It's brought to you by tedrussellford.net, tedrusselllincoln.net.
That's hot.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
And guys,
here, first down.
First down. Go.
Let me pose the question, and I'm going to put this on the message board now. And the question is, and I got 4 downs. Who is more? And I'm going to lay out all the examples. Who is more?
How does a poll question?
Huh?
How does a poll question?
I'm laying out a poll question. Who's more responsible for killing college football?
No,
Which conference?
I got something better. Go
right.
ahead with first down.
Okay, so first down. The question to all of you guys first is, who's more responsible for killing college football tradition? SEC or Big Ten? First down is where the SEC is at fault. They were the first to expand to 16 teams of the two conferences. They broke the Big 12 by adding Texas and Oklahoma.
Okay. I got a fit down for you. It's going to blow your mind. But anyway.
Okay.
Yes, I will give you that expansion has led to this. Now, do you think it was the first round of expansion with Arkansas, South Carolina, or the second and third round?
I think it was the first round with Arkansas and South Carolina, all the way back in 1992. Because remember, doing that destroyed the Southwest Conference. The SEC nuked the Southwest Conference pretty much by doing that, which is one of the oldest conferences in football. And I don't think the Southwest Conference was the best conference to exist. I mean, I didn't think it made sense that Texas A&M, and Arkansas should be in the same division with like SMU, Houston, and what were the other schools in there? I mean, all these random Texas schools that you never hear of. But yeah, I think the SEC began the process of expansion way back in 92, and that's why we're in this situation we are in right now.
All right, let's get to second down. General Ursa says, I got nothing but Elizabeth Shue on my mind. I don't blame you. What's our poll question now, Caleb? It's a special one that I had to veto yours.
Would you rather bite Michelle Pfeiffer or Elizabeth Shue? Can we not talk about like abusing women, guys?
That's not, in some cases, that's not abusing. Some may like that.
But you don't know. They haven't consented to this.
Well, I'm not hunting them down, trying to bite them right now.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Well, it's funny that Michelle Pfeiffer came up because my two biggest celebrity crushes when I was a kid was probably Shue and Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer in particular in Grease 2. I need a cool rider, a COOLRIDER. I need a cool rider. You seen Grease 2?
No, I didn't even like Grease 1 that much.
Oh, all right. It's the only musical that's doable. The Big Ten killed the Pac-12 with their expansion. Yeah, I think if you had to pick one of the moves that you've got listed, this is the biggest one. I mean, they went out and they made it a national thing, and they completely changed the face of the sport. I'm not so sure that we wouldn't be in the same place we weren't 5 years ago. We were 5 years ago, if not for that major.
This was a huge one. But I fully blame the Big Ten for this. This was a big, no pun intended, blow to college football because to counter the SEC's influence, they decided to go add USC and UCLA. And you look back on that and you're like, that ended conferences as a regional thing at all. At least all the SEC schools were congruent. The Big Ten was like, yeah, we got all these Midwestern schools and we got these two California schools that's going to nuke one of the oldest conferences. Whatever you think about like West Coast football, let's be honest, Steve, you enjoyed back in the day staying up late at night watching one of those like West Coast games that had basketball scores, didn't you? That was always fun.
I agree. I like that. I thought that the SEC, you don't have this listed on one of yours, but when it really started to spread out the TV market and have a premier game in the night window, I thought that hurt some of those games. And then I would stay up for the Pac-12 game.
Yeah, but see, at least you always had a Pac-12 game that started at 11 and went till 2 a.m. And you know, if you're out partying and it's like on TV, you're at a bar, you just stop. You're like, man, this game's like 64-55. I got to see who wins.
Yeah, I mean, I saw them all start sober because my friends would party during the game and I was working. And it was either I learned really quick, you can't play catch up. What are you going to do? Have like 5 shots of tequila to try to catch up to your buddies, and then you blow right past them. So I would just hang out with them, start sober, maybe sip a beer. All right, what down are we at now there, Cooper Mazer?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
All right. Reasons why the SEC and Big Ten are possibly killing college football. The SEC fought for the BCS and for expanded playoff to be 12 teams instead of 8. You're still missing the big one.
All right. This is a big one to me, though, because the SEC, by fighting for the BCS, when Roy Kramer did that in 1998, he wrecked like traditional bowl tie-in traditions. And then when there was talk of the college football playoff, the SEC, everybody agreed on 4. And then they were trying to go to 8, but the SEC either wanted to stay at 4 or go to 12. And the 8 was the move. The 8 with the 5 Power 5 conference champions, 1 group of 5 and 2 at-large bids was the move that would have preserved the regular season. And they just screwed it.
Okay. 4th down from Caleb coming up. And I'm going to give you the biggest factor in why college football has changed so dramatically. And it took a long time, but it did happen. Four Downs is right now. It's brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. Go to tedrussellford.net, tedrusselllincoln.net.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Mays here. 4th down.
All right, 4th down. What is it?
4th down is what the Big Ten is trying to do now. Automatic qualifiers in the college football playoff. Totally stupid. Total disaster. I hate that we're at this point with a 12 to 14 to 16 team playoff in mega conferences, but automatic qualifiers just makes that worse. And I get Josh Pate's argument because if you listen to him, he says automatic qualifiers is one way to kind of preserve like conference races now in college football. But what the heck is a conference race when you're fighting for the 4th best spot in the conference to get into the playoff?
You know the biggest factor was in getting to a playoff?
What?
Roy Kramer. And he would be absolutely disgusted to hear me say that. But he was the one who originally came up with the BCS to seed a 1 and 2. But it also seeded beyond that to create discussion. It also created discussion among, let's say, the number 1 and number 4 team who might be in another conference, but they both won their conference. So really, it started when Roy Kramer decided to institute the BCS. And once that happened, you had a matchup of Florida State and Tennessee in the first BCS national championship game. Most people, even though I'd watched a lot of football and I was sure Tennessee was going to win pretty handily, and they did. They won comfortably. I didn't think Florida State was close to Tennessee, but most of the people in the nation thought Florida State was significantly better. As a matter of fact, Keith Jackson said it during the break one time. He said, I don't care how well Tennessee plays, Florida State's going to win because they're that much better. That's what created the discourse and the conversation that eventually led to a playoff. Now, it took 25 years, but I still believe it was that move. And Roy Kramer was so anti-playoff, you can't even put it into words. He was a big bowl guy. But in the end, what he did during his tenure is what led to all of this.
What was also laughable, though, was to try to create the 1 versus 2 was 1 versus 2 does not always mean the 2 best teams in any ranking. There's no formula. So the year after Tennessee and Florida State, and they had the resume, so they deserved to go, but you had Florida State play Virginia Tech for the title. Virginia Tech was like, and talent-wise, was not a top 5 team that year. They got there because of Michael Vick. And I think we all agree, Tennessee, Nebraska, like the 99 Tennessee team, that 99 Nebraska team, both of those teams would have given Florida State a much better fight than Virginia Tech did. And then the next year, you had Florida State play Oklahoma, but in 2001, you had Nebraska get in to play Miami. Once again, giant gap in talent. Nebraska didn't belong on the same field. So you were that's the other part of why this led to the playoff is you wanted to create this 1 versus 2 scenario, but number 2 is not always in the same class as number 1.
Fair. And then I'll quote the great Austin Powers. Who does number 2 work for? He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Most importantly, give us an update on our poll question. What is that?
Who would you rather... I hate this poll question so much. Who would you rather bite, Elizabeth Shue or Michelle Pfeiffer? 56% say Elizabeth Shue, 44% say Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm sorry, I'm going to upstage you. I'm not voting on this poll. I refuse. I absolutely despise this poll so much.
You know what's funny, too, is I've got in my mind that they're the same age they were when I had a crush on them when I was younger. But Michelle Pfeiffer's 67 years old. I don't know that anybody wants to be biting a 7-year-old.
No, but I don't want to be biting anybody, so there's that. I mean, Avril Lavigne has a great song called "Bite Me."
If you had to bite a woman, who would it be? Elizabeth Shue's 61 as well. I didn't realize she was that much older.
Did you just ask if I had to bite a woman, who would it be?
Well, if so, you need to get in touch with Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com for your defense. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. We broadcast weekdays at 10 a.m. live. You can follow us wherever you podcast, YouTube. Be sure and hit that like and subscribe button. The show broadcasts from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer off the